So we're good. We're here. All right. So I guess I'll officially call this to order since this is, so we don't have a chair yet. So because there isn't a chair, the first order of business is for the three school committee members to quickly touch their nose and decide who isn't. But I will open this meeting and then we'll get to that. So we're following open meeting law. So to do the script, this open meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee Facility Subcommittee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, in response to the COVID pandemic and enacted into law by Section 20 of the Chapter 20 of Acts of 2021 and the provisions extended through March 31st, 2025 by the fiscal year 2023 supplemental budget signed by Governor Healy on March 29th of 2023. So I will call this meeting to order of the inaugural meeting of the Triton School Committee Facility Subcommittee today, Friday, March 15th at, sorry, gonna need some glasses, 11:03 a.m. I'm Brian Forget. I'm the superintendent, and I'm just doing this for a short period until the school committee members decide who is going to be the chair of this subcommittee. So to start, let's just confirm everyone can hear and be heard. So when I call your name, do this thing we've been doing since 2020, right? So we'll start with, I'm going around my screen, Caitlin.
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. And Narissa.
I'm here and I can hear you.
And then Matt.
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. And now our town representatives, Christine.
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. And Alicia.
I'm here and I can hear you.
And Neil.
Ditto.
Did I? You're such a rule follower. Right. And so our staff, John.
I'm here and I can hear you.
Awesome. And Brian.
I'm here.
All right. Thank you all. And I'm here and I can hear you. And Nicole's here and she can hear you, but she's going to pretend because she doesn't.
Is Linda here?
And Linda is here. So I think she is listening in. She's
Okay.
not participating. So this is a subcommittee of the school committee.
Okay.
So she may chime in, obviously, as the chair of the school committee, but she was joining to just hear what transpires. So at this point, I'm also do public comments. We're going through the agenda that we have here. There is no other public. Linda, would you like to make a comment as a member of the public? Just kidding. So hearing none, I will skip that script, and I will hand this to Matt, Narissa, and Caitlin. Or should I? Am I going to make me be the proctor to decide who's going to be the chair?
No, I mean, I think we can probably do that on your own as long as we're on that agenda item. I don't know. Not me. But also I think Matt's the only one that's on our subcommittee that has official like real world building knowledge. So, and I never underestimate the ability to get subcommittee chair experience, so that in case somebody needs to step in and run a meeting down the road, they have some experience doing that in a less intense situation than a full school committee meeting at some point. So I don't know, I would make a motion for Matt to be the chair.
I second that motion.
Enthusiastically.
Yes.
Matt, do you accept? Just before we do this, I don't want to force you into something.
I do, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Brian, I think you still have to roll call vote.
Do I still do the roll call?
Yeah,
Right.
because you're running the meeting.
Okay. So then I have a motion made by Narissa and seconded. We're going to go enthusiastically seconded by Caitlin. All in favor. So Narissa.
Yes.
Caitlin.
Yes.
And Matt.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Matt.
Thanks,
so
Matt.
is officially your cruise
Thanks,
director.
Matt.
So,
One for the team.
so happy to hand this to you, Matt.
Thank you. So I guess our next agenda item is to review the subcommittee purpose, and I'll hand it back to you for that.
All right. So just to clarify first, before we get to that, so this is being recorded. We have historically not recorded and posted subcommittee meetings. obviously we hold the full committee meetings in the library where we have the setup to both stream live and then obviously when they're meeting remotely via Zoom, that gives us that capacity. For other subcommittees, we haven't posted them to the YouTube channel. I know we've had some discussion about there being value in recording these and making these public. There's obviously been a lot of discussion of late of another regional school district in our area and a building project that created a lot of angst. And so we want to make sure first and foremost, even getting to the purpose of this group is to make sure that we're having wide open lines of communication. I feel like we have great communication through our DCC in between our towns and, between myself and Neil and Debbie and Tracy. But I also want to make sure that we're having these conversations specifically as we've continued to hear no's rather than yeses from the MSBA. So I don't know if there are thoughts on that. I mean, committee members. So we should also note that this is officially a subcommittee of the school committee. So the action and authority of this board is Narissa, Caitlin, and Matt reporting back to the larger body of the 9-member school committee to make recommendations, right? This group doesn't have the 3 of them don't have decision-making authority. So Christine, Alicia, and Neil, we thought it was of value to have someone regularly participating in these from the town side to make sure that there was a good communication flow back. Anything that would become a larger discussion, we would put on a DCC agenda, put on a school committee agenda. Obviously, decisions are school committee, broader communication through the DCC. So I think that, that's the role. Certainly, this is an opportunity. I think we've had these discussions internally. This is more like a think tank, right? This is an opportunity to have ideas flow, and whether they go anywhere or not, have the conversations here, because we in a most urgent way need to have a plan moving forward for the middle school, high school campus. But even long term, looking at Pine Grove, obviously the most recently renovated, Newbury now the oldest. Recently, the last renovation done in 1994, which is coming up on 30 years. And Salisbury, which was 2000, so already 24 years old, having a plan that we are part of. The towns own the buildings, obviously, but we operate those buildings, so it's incumbent on us to be driving that bus, no pun intended, to make sure that we have a plan, a long-term and short-term capital plan, so that we can say, here are the needs, and then work with the member towns to plan funding for those accordingly. So with that said, thoughts on whether, right, we're obviously recording it and for minuting purposes, but is this something we would like to post on the YouTube channel for the school committee to ensure that these conversations are more public and broad?
Personally, I think we should post it so there's transparency.
I agree with Matt.
So I guess the place where I struggle is that, so I also agree. I love transparency. That was one of our main goals, and just even setting this up the way it was done. But one of my concerns is that if we're meeting by Zoom all the time, that is easy. If we decide to move meetings in person, Triton at least has limited spaces where we can videotape it, and we would need to arrange for someone to be part of that process, which is a cost to the district as well, which is, kind of a separate issue. But I would be wary about saying, March's meeting ends up online, but April's does not. And I would also, I don't know what everybody's availability is, but it would probably mean it has to be, if it's going to be at Triton, that a meeting would have to be after the end of the school day, possibly in an evening, in order to ensure that we can get somebody to actually videotape that. Tell me if I said anything wrong there, Brian. That's just my understanding from full committee meetings.
Yeah, I think the cost is not what the word I'm looking for, right? Not
Enormous.
enormous, nor is it a problem. The issue is, even for the evening meetings, finding, right, we use students, which is awesome exposure through the VTV program. Finding students for the evenings is challenging. Probably a lot more would be willing to miss class during the day, so they'd be more available. Not that that would be a positive thing. I think more than anything, I think we had talked about, I can't remember who I was talking to about, right? I think there might be some of these meetings that would make sense to meet in person, and we don't have the the video capacity anywhere outside of the library. So that's like many of the town halls, right? That all that technology is installed in the library for those purposes. So it certainly argues that it might make sense into the future to have another meeting space that we could stream from. We just don't have that right now. We have a Zoom room in our conference room, and there's probably a path forward to with spending some money to make that into a providing the capacity to be able to stream from that room onto YouTube like we do downstairs. But yeah, I think it would limit our ability. We have a much more limited ability when we're not on Zoom. And I think personally, Zoom is very efficient, very helpful, saves the drives. But I also think this is going to be a right numbers and hands-on, boots on the ground kind of working group to identify the needs and the solutions moving forward. And I do agree that I think I only worry about the consistency. Love the idea of transparency and putting in it. And I think this is separate, new, and important enough to say, let's put this up on the YouTube channel. But again, I see your point about the consistency and okay, this month it's there and next month it's not. And does that create well, how come it was available last month and not this month? What are they doing this month that they decided to meet in person? And people start to make assumptions. And I think people have trusted our transparency to this point. We don't want to do anything to degrade that.
So I guess part of my follow-up question then is to the group, how willing are folks to meet on Zoom on a fairly consistent basis? Because I think if it's, 90% on Zoom and that's an easy to record, then maybe we can get away with the other 10%, either in an evening in the library or, in the case that it's mobile and we're throughout the building, it's just, there's no way to do that, right? You can't,
Yeah, I guess I would just say before people share opinions, we have the capacity, right? Bob Lathrop with the VTV program, if we're scheduling it around classes and we're not causing a disruption to kids' academic days, I think there are paths, right? They video games, so there is the way to do that. I just don't think it could be a routine thing. So what I'm hearing you say is if the norm is we're meeting routinely via Zoom, efficient, transparent, easily putting out there on video, and then occasionally there's a meeting wherever, right? In the middle school gym, so we can talk about the brown sludge on the wall, right? Or something like that, then we could on a one-off, we would have the ability to have those meetings streamed. Or at least available.
Oh, Brian, do the meetings have to be take place on like the Triton School campus if we meet in person, or can it be rotated throughout the 3 towns like we do with the DCC? Because like we have the capability of record, video
Streaming,
recording, streaming from the auditorium in the town hall. Just
Yeah.
throwing it out there.
Yeah, I would say have to know, right? I think the DCC is about communication as a whole. So I love the idea of rotating it around. This committee is specifically about facilities. And again, first charge, the middle school, high school campus. So we had thought about it. I don't know how other people feel, but we had thought about it as a meeting on this campus. Obviously, we're all via Zoom, so we're not on this campus. So it's right. I think the important thing is the faces and voices around the table, virtual table here today. So yeah, we're not bound by location for sure.
Okay, I just wanted to throw that out. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Can you
mean,
record?
sorry.
Oh, sorry, Narissa.
No, go
Can
ahead,
you-
Alicia.
Can you record? Because what we do, we don't live stream all of our meetings. We record with the video recorder, some of them.
Yep.
And then edit them and they go up after
Yep.
that. Do we have the possibility of doing that?
Yeah, so that's the way we do. We post. It's all. This is step above my pay grade, but we basically do the same thing. It's streamed live on YouTube and then it's processed, BTV crew, and then posted. So yeah, so even if we couldn't stream, we would be able, like if we met in the gym at the Brown Sludge Wall in the middle school gym, we could record that with their, remote setup, process it and post it to YouTube. Absolutely. Yep. It doesn't have to be live. Yeah.
So personally, I think we can do 90% of the meetings. My preference would be 90% of the meetings via Zoom. I don't know how anyone else feels though.
I'm fine with that.
I'm good. That works better for me, actually.
I like the idea of having a lot of them on Zoom when we're talking kind of like big picture, but I felt like this would be a very like hands-on in a building looking at specific issues and listening to maybe other people with experience in whatever that issue is weighing in person. So I guess my thing is when it makes sense to be on Zoom 100% because that's easiest, but I would like a lot of capability to be in the buildings looking at the actual issue that we're discussing, how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone feels about that. I think it's just important to have eyes on because we always talk about like in the last meeting, we were talking about a hole in the field and what it would cost to fix it. But I think at some point seeing that is vitally important so that we can report back to our towns in a more meaningful way.
So those could be handled like site walks, right? So like
Absolutely.
when the planning board has, they have all their public meetings and they have a site walk. It's not recorded or live, but you come back and you report what you saw at the site walk. So
Yep. Yeah.
I think, I don't know, unless Neil thinks there's a reason why it might not be the right way to go. I think it could be handled the same. Can we look at them like site walks, Neil? Are you talking? Because I don't hear you at all.
No, I'm not talking. That's why.
Okay, that's fine. I can't hear you.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, and we have, again, depending on the trajectory of this group, we also have the VTV crew who can use their skill sets to tell a story too, right? So if there is a story that this group wants to tell separate from, a decision being made, we have this has been the topic du jour of the Triton Voice. And there's been some pretty pointed, we'll call it, reporting, respectful, but pointed. And certainly, the students have access and the ability to be very creative. So we could use that as a resource. So, okay. So Brian's summary is Zoom for the foreseeable future, right? Until we have a reason to not meet in Zoom. And because of that, we have the ability to post those onto YouTube. So we will do that. That it's, Nicole pulls down the recording and shares it with Bob, and we get that up onto the YouTube channel, usually within a day or two. So that will be the plan. Okay. I'm seeing nods.
Sounds good.
All right. So as far as,
I'm sorry, did you review the purpose?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you review? You're going to review the purpose now, right?
Yeah, I think I started to go over
subcommittee?
that a little bit at the beginning, but again, I think the roles, obviously this is a school committee subcommittee. So we talked about that as far as the authority of the group, but the purpose, I think we've had a lot of discussions. We obviously have been submitting our statement of interest, right? The SOI to the school, to the MSBA. We've talked about it for years. We've formally submitted the last 2 years. I submitted it, committee approved it in March, and I submitted that on March 1st. Actually approved it in February, and I submitted it March 1st. I've worked with our legislators, waiting to see a letter of support from Senator Tarr, along with Reps Shand and Kastner. So we're completing that process, right? We'll continue to complete that process. Everything we've heard from the MSBA and their staff. Some of you have been part of the site walks that they've done. Is obviously knowledge from past projects at Pine Grove School. So it was a lot of the same players around the table. Some have changed, but in all of our communication with them, they've said, look, Triton's a viable project, right? We see the need. We believe the story. We believe the arguments you've made. They like the fact that we're proposing it as a renovation, not necessarily a knockdown rebuild. That doesn't stop us from having to study everything. So we have to study, is a knockdown rebuild the most cost effective, because the MSBA is going to choose the solution that's the right and best 50-year investment of their funds if they're going to give us, roughly half the cost. So we're continuing through that process. We've been told by the MSBA we have a viable project. It just the past 2 years, for varied reasons, the money's dried up. Obviously, there was 2 years ago, our first year submitting, there were only 10 approved, and that was largely due to increased costs. There was significant new dollars added and caps changed in the process for the 23 year. We had hope. They accepted 18 or 19, so almost double the number they had accepted the previous year. We still didn't make the cut. So I think those caps and those dollar amounts will still continue to improve over time. The reality is, as more cities and towns find themselves in a place of being able to have that and wanting to have that discussion, it increases the competition. And again, just to confirm, in Massachusetts, I've talked with several others from other states, been part of a national cohort. It's been interesting to learn. Other states, and speaking with a superintendent in Connecticut, when you're ready, right? So we, as a 3-town region, and the school committee says, we're ready to put our name forward. All the approvals happen, you put your name on the list. In Connecticut, you work your way up the list. So if you apply 1 year, it might take you a couple years to move up that list, but you're part of a process. So you're in queue. In Massachusetts, every year the list is rewritten, right? So every year the slate is wiped clean and all of the applications are considered based on their merit in as a whole new set. So we might have been, and I was told, kind of not confidentially, but off the record, that we were like that close the first year. It was 10 accepted. We were like 11 or 12. In another state, obviously it's different in every state, we would have been at the top of the list for the next year, and we could have assumed, and very comfortably assumed, that the following year, if another 10, 15 were accepted, we're in. In Massachusetts, we were then wiped off the list, considered again with all the applications in the 2023 cycle, and then 18, 19 were selected, and again, we were very close. We weren't chosen. So that's the frustration, is that there are districts who apply for 5, 6, 7 years and aren't accepted, not because the project isn't viable, not because the towns haven't supported that or the school committee hasn't supported it and have expressed their support. And even for us, having set aside the funding through ESSER, that $1.5 million, which is now a little over $1.6 million, to be able to have that feasibility study paid for without having to have another override. All of those, right? We've done all the right things. We still are subject to whoever decides to apply each year. So if there are absolutely schools 100% in the Commonwealth that are far worse than Triton. And so it's a comparison on a year-by-year basis, deciding who apply or as a decision after seeing who applies each year. So with that said, what we've talked about each year is, and the first priority that I feel like this committee needs to look at is we're going to continue to apply. Like I said, we applied again March 1st, doing everything we can, checking all the boxes, doing the dance as best we possibly can. We have to have a plan B. We keep talking about a plan B, and there are no cheap plan Bs available to us. we have a new, obviously, John, if you haven't met, I should have introduced. So Jonathan Skinicki, who's now waving. Many of you know Chris Walsh, who had been with us for, I forget the number, 27, 28, 29 years, knew these buildings inside and out. John comes to us with great expertise coming from, most recently from Harvard Law School and as a trades manager, and understands the needs. And so we're doing, we've moved kind of historically, I know this is in our towns as well, from a lot of knowledge in our heads to documented processes. And so John's doing great work in, we're working towards implementing a system that manages all of our preventative maintenance, and they're from that being able to project and develop long-term capital plans. Again, I want this group to have a kind of a purview for all of our facilities, even though the elementaries are owned by the towns. But we need to be, planning long-term for all our facilities. In the short term, we keep coming back to Triton and saying, all right, we need to have that plan B. We talk about a plan B, and plan B adds up in tens of millions of dollars rapidly, right? And so that's the hope of this. And again, I think this is more of a planning meeting, and we'll, kind of get into the meat of it as we continue here. But we need to start talking about, what if we're not accepted into the MSBA? We now know that's a reality. 2 years, no, and hopefully we hear yes in December. But if we hear no, if we hear yes in December, right, that charts a path for us. If we hear no in December, we need to be ready for the plan B. Even if we hear yes in December, right, we know that a project at a minimum is 5-6 years from the time you're accepted to the time the project is completed. I think our initial SOI was submitted for Pine Grove in 2013, 14, and that was the third attempt. And it really finished up in 2019. So there are parts of this campus, I'm sitting on that campus now, this campus I'm on, where it's not going to last, right? I can tell you, it's one storm away from a multi-million-dollar needed repair. And so that was the hope, is to establish this committee and this dialogue, to start talking about options. And really, it comes down to two options. There's an option to continue with our hopeful, right? Continue with a forward-thinking mindset of, yes, we're going to hear yes someday from MSBA and what that means. But we also have to look at what the reality would be as far as fixing the problems without the MSBA. And I would assume a project without the MSBA is not going to be to the scope and scale and rethinking the campus that we would be required and want to do with the MSBA. But it's still a path that we have to explore. So I just said a lot. And I'm sure people have thoughts.
So my question is, if we spent money now, like hypothetically, on a roof or HVAC units, we would still get the max square footage if we did a renovation from the MSBA, right?
Say that again. We would still get the max square footage as far as in their formulas.
Yeah, from the reimbursement.
Yeah. So that's a good question. And just to clarify, the MSBA and those involved, looking at Christine and Narissa right on top of each other there, right? In the Pine Grove project, it is all student enrollment and square footage driven. So their formula is, they will tell us how big of a building they will participate in. I can tell you Pentucket's enrollment, it's actually declined like ours since the project was approved. Their building is right around 200,000 square feet, just a tick over. Our building currently is 286,000 square feet. So it's a pretty, doing the math, it's a pretty safe assumption to say that the MSBA is going to participate in a building that's around 200,000 square feet, maybe a little more. If we're creative, we got creative at Pine Grove and created extended learning areas out of classrooms, and those became reimbursable. So to your point, Matt, we have to have it be part. So what I'm saying, we have to have it be considered as part of a potential renovation if it's going to be included in those assumptions and thresholds. So if we take the gym, right? So the gym is easy because it's somewhat standalone. It's integrated with our systems, HVAC, lighting, electrical, obviously, but it could be rethought, right? That's way above our pay grade. I mean, John's talented, but that's right. That's not something John designs. This is engineers, right? There's a lot of work to do there. But could that be re-engineered as a standalone so we could address what has become a major roof leak, roof leaks, plural, on that gym that's extended, the middle school and the high school? I think we could do the roof, which you kind of have to touch the rooftop units if you're going to do that at the same time, and still have that be considered square footage, because I don't think we would change the walls, right? We could leave the roof and the RTU intact, but put a new gym floor down or something, you know, and that could all be considered part of the reimbursable cost. But to your question, this is where, right, we need experts to help us with this. To decide, and specifically, folks, you know, we obviously, and I do want to just talk about the Habib report as it's been known or, you know, dubbed. Folks like Habib and Associates or others, Doran Whittier, right, who did Pine Grove, who did Pentucket. These folks have done multiple private, public, and school-based projects. So they know the MSBA process, they know the system, they know how to use it to our advantage or our disadvantage. And so part of that discussion we've had is, are we at a spot where we need to spend some dollars to partner with? It's not a typical contract. It would be me reaching out to these vendors to say, what do you do next, right? It's easy when you're saying we want to do a project, you hire your OPM, or you're with the MSBA, they partnered with you to develop and identify those. So we know how to do municipal projects, but we're in this weird, we need to develop a plan A and B. And I think we need some expertise for that.
I would agree, because I don't want to spend money if we can get it reimbursed, but I don't think the cost per square foot is so high. I don't think we're going to get reimbursed for everything that we should anyway. So hopefully
True. Yeah.
spending the money now is just saving us from spending the money later.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you have a stabilization fund or anything that you can take some money out of?
So we, yes, we established the budget the last 2 years, I should say. The current year and next year are the first 2 years. The committee identified in our capital funding policy. We take a step back, right? Remember the Salisbury Elementary discussion. Salisbury owns Salisbury Elementary, but the district bonded it because back in the day, the district had a much better bond rating than the towns. Obviously, that's reversed now. The towns have a far superior bond rating. We have to borrow, right? The district owns this campus, so we will need to borrow for the eventual project, whatever it is. So we need to improve our bond rating. So we've done the work. We were historically using E&D to balance the budget. We're not anymore. We set aside a capital stabilization fund, and so that is a 4-year phase-in of $75,000 per year added to the budget. Fiscal 24 was the first year. The finalized fiscal 25 budget includes that. So over every decade, that's putting $1.5 million away. We, through ESSER funding, legally worked our ESSER funding so that we had capacity and transferred money into stabilization. So we put 500 of E&D and $1 million of ESSER funding over into stabilization, added 75 this year. And so, yes, so we have that. We've earmarked that, right? The vision is short term, that money is available for the feasibility study. So that, again, everyone knows it's a 2-step process. You first, if you partner with the MSBA, they're going to say you have to study every option, even the knockdown rebuild in another location. So we had this weird one-off in Rowley where they let us, it's called what's called limited scope repair. It was this 1 year, us and Blue Hills, and then Blue Hills backed out of it. So Pine Grove is the only one in the history of the state to do that, where they basically said, fine, you don't have to study everything. You can't change the footprint of your building. So that's why it literally looks the same. Gut and
We no
redo.
longer do that, I don't believe, Brian.
No, it was Pine Grove was the only one, which is a shame because it was such a more efficient process.
Absolutely.
So that 1.6 million that we have there, we're earmarking, we're setting aside to say, and that's been the discussion with the towns to say, look, that first study, which is the feasibility study period, is $1.5 million to $2 million. We have the funding set aside. Most towns have to go for a override to fund that, which is hard, right? It's easy when you, that's not true. That's a bad choice of words. It is easier to argue for a project when you've designed the project. There's the pictures that now it's, virtual fly-throughs and the posters and floor plans of showing what you're going to get. When you're saying public, Joe Citizen, we need your money for this. It is really hard to argue and say we need $1.5 million to $2 million just to figure out what we want to do. That is always a challenging vote. So that's been part of the DCC discussion over the past couple of years and through this process and the town supported that, setting up the stabilization, setting that funding aside, and then past that, setting up a structure so that we're contributing operating dollars to stabilization for the long term, right? We've not done a good job long-term investing in the capital upkeep of the buildings. And so we want to make sure that now that Pine Grove is recently renovated and Newbury and Salisbury, even though the towns own them, be part of that process so we can say, yes, here's the long-term needs. And then for this campus, obviously, specifically, because it is a district cost and owned and managed, so that we have the capacity to address issues long-term, right? And to do the preventative and capital maintenance that's required so we don't find ourselves where we are today, right? So where we are today isn't a lack of effort. A lot of it, I don't want to, this is a public meeting, right? There were a lot of decisions made in the renovation of this building in the late 90s to 2000. I'm looking out windows. That's literally the glass was put in the 90s, but the frames and everything else are circa 1967, right? You can't, those are the decisions we can't make again, because you're inevitably saving short-term money for a solution that's putting us where we are today. So the answer is, do we have stabilization? Yes. Currently $1.6 something million. The costs, maybe this is a good time to just refresh. So let me I made you the host and now you have to let me share, Nicole. So let me share it and I'll just show, I'm not going to go through the report in its entirety, but just to make sure we're refreshing. Thank you.
Can I just say while Brian's sharing real quick, two quick things. So there has been maintenance being done on the building throughout. What the stabilization fund gives us the capability to do is in this situation where we know at least a section of a roof replacement needs to be done. If that money was already there, then that can be it's been accumulated over years and that could be put directly towards the roof replacement rather than having to wait until essentially the entire building is at a situation where the state will invest. So I think that's the benefit there. But the other thing I just wanted to say, my personal opinion is I would like to leave the intent of this committee, the subcommittee, relatively open, because I feel like if we limit it too much too early, we may limit our capability to make the wisest decisions. So I'm always big on let's consider all the options and then look at the pros and cons of each one and also sort of what's viable. And I'm afraid if we say, let's hire someone to give us an idea if the gym roof replacement is viable, and that's the only thing, then we may limit our options on taking the best route forward. So that's just my 2 cents while Brian's sharing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's, we had said earlier, we need experts to guide us in this process. And I think that's one of the first things I personally, Brian Ford's opinion, that I wanted to put out there today is to start building some, or have some conversation around whether both the school committee and the towns would support investing of some dollars. I don't even know what the number would be, right, to have a partnership. Obviously, it would make sense to continue with Habib. We've worked with them, they know the building, so they would be able to advise us a little more quickly. But I think that's, for me, the next step is, in working with John and Brian, right, is if coming up with a plan, it's having some expert opinion on how to navigate this what if. So that we're not, back to Matt's point, right? We want to make sure that we're not doing anything that we could get reimbursed for later. And we certainly don't want to be doing something that, or investing, even hundreds of thousands, let alone millions of dollars that we know we're going to be redoing in the future. So just to, everyone can see my screen now, correct? Yeah. So just, this is one page of the Habib report. This goes over, again, the layout of the report is scope 1 through 4. Scope 1, urgent. Scope 4, long-term. Also to note, this report was, this was a comprehensive facilities assessment. So the design of this is what are the needs and what are the costs to fix it as it exists. So not rethink, not redesign, literally, and we keep using this, we've used this over the years, the blue obelisk, that's a square obelisk with the flag on top of it as you enter the courtyard for the high school entrance, is essentially disintegrating from the inside out. The solution for that is removing it and putting a lovely flagpole in, right? Not I think the cost was an $80,000 new obelisk. The awnings, the metal arched awnings out front, great design element. They tend to cause more hassle. And so replacing those are assumed as a cost in here. We wouldn't necessarily replace them. We could just remove them. So just to make sure that we've had a lot of talk about this facilities assessment and the Habib report, but we really need to make sure that we're clear that this isn't a solution necessarily, because there's lots of things that we wouldn't just want to fix as they exist. I think that would be unwisely spent dollars. But just to remind folks of where we are as far as the scope, or the breadth of the costs that we're talking about here. Again, scope 1, urgent, on down to scope 4, need to plan out, 5+ years into the future. As you can see, right, the majority of the costs here are in scope 1, 2, and 3. Just as an example, scope 1, building envelope, windows, roofs, and doors. The majority of that cost, that 12.9 million, is the roof. There is no single easy solution to fix a roof piecemeal. And so when we're talking about, could we do the roof and then solve that issue? We're talking for the gymnasium. I forget the square footage, John, you might know that, but it's a large, gymnasium between the two gyms. So we're talking millions of dollars to replace the roof over there. And if we're going to add the rooftop units while we're removing the roof and the rooftop unit, rather than placing a 25-year-old piece of equipment back up there, throwing good money after bad, we're into the $3, $4, $5 million just to solve that one piece alone. Back to the original discussion, we have to be careful about not wasting dollars. We need to be making decisions. So again, just to talk through the scope 1 is at that point in 2019, or actually I should say it's 2021, 16.5 million. Scope 2, 12.5 million. Scope 3 coming up on 24 million, and then 88,000 for scope 4. They inflated these costs 4 pounds, compounded 4% annually. Almost all my British. So compounded annually, this assessment was done in 2019, meaning the walkthroughs and the actual assessment. The surveys were done in 2019. It was recosted after the pandemic mid-pandemic in 2021. It was not reevaluated. So the assumptions here in this report, and again, it's extensive, going item by item to talk through what each of those needs are. again, you can see here, just paving curbs, almost $1 million with soft costs, 1.25 million. Some needed repairs in scope 1. That's the urgent. In the next 1 to 2 years, it was $1 million. That was in 2019. So we've now gone 5 years, right? So the point being, much of what we had in scope 2 and 3, some of those would now have shifted into scope 1, which would be considered urgent. So again, adding to our point, or to my point, I should say, right? We're not talking urgent needs are not, I think to your question, Alicia, do we have a capital fund or a stabilization fund? Yes. Not anything that would even come close to touching a right solution for the needs that have emerged, right? This is, and I also don't want to, speak in total catastrophic terminology, right? We've talked about the brown sludge on the middle school gym wall. It might be the most popular Facebook post on some town discussion boards, right? I can reaffirm for this group, it is not toxic. It is roof tile, roof cement. When it heats up, it melts, water gets in there, it runs down. So we're working on a kind of stopgap system. So we're not spending, thousands of dollars every 6 months to clean it off. But there is nothing. It is not mold. We've had Department of Public Health come through and do a comprehensive assessment of this building. Was that, I think, last year, year before? Air quality, all good. So it is. Do we have needs? Absolutely. It is safe, right? There's the brown is not mold. It is not unsafe. We don't have mold in classrooms. We have lots of standing water. We can have a little splash party on my carpet when it rains. So we have needs, and it's this balance of creating a sense of urgency around the needs, but also making sure people understand that the building is not unsafe, right? We're not asking our kids to walk into a building that is causing health problems for them. It is definitely unsightly. It's definitely frustrating. The bathrooms, another popular topic of discussion. So this, and again, I won't go through the report in its entirety, but this report breaks down via scope, and it's a total of $61.5 million. That was in 2021. So we know many of those costs have shifted to the left as far as the scope and the need over the past 5 years. But I would say, the two most pressing needs, or I'd say the most pressing need is the roof. And that is one that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone. I don't know if John, if you have anything to add on the roof, right? So that is huge ticket, $10 million, call it, for ease. There are daily leaks, and then there's this fear of larger, right? We've had hints of larger catastrophic failures that aren't a $50,000 repair job. So I don't know if John, if you want to speak to that at all.
No, I mean, you've touched on it all, the gym itself, right? So during basketball games, I mean, we've had leaks in the middle of the court, but now we're starting to see deterioration of the court itself because those leaks are happening over weekends. We're not always getting to them in sufficient time to stop damage to the wood floors. I mean, we're just starting to see it affect different areas of the building itself, which is obviously going to cost a lot more money down the road. But I mean, the gym itself is over 35,000 square feet of roofing. There's probably a few $1 million for roofing there in today's dollars, right? In kind of 2021. Other issues on the roof, you've got the rooftop units and all that. Obviously, that comes into play when we're doing the roofing. The roofing is failing in a lot of spots. Even the 2000 renovation, right? You see that deteriorating just as quickly as everything else out there. A lot of the capping, the stonework on top of the parapet walls in those areas, you're seeing failure there. So you can walk through and see a lot of deterioration that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Is the high school roof failing as well? The front roof there that's newer?
I would.
Do you mean the middle school, Matt? Like that, the big blue wall you see first?
Yeah, is that the middle school?
That's the middle school. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah,
that's failing as well. Okay.
Yeah, we did a repair over there, but that's failing. The facade over there, the stonework that was used over there, we have issues there as well. That's going to take an expert to come through and look at it and see where we have leaks coming through. We did some patchwork. We stopped a lot of leaks this year with some parapet wall capping that we put on. That ended a bunch of leaks that we had in classrooms. Didn't solve all the problems, but we solved a bunch. But that roof over there it's not adhered to the insulation, like, just over time, when it reaches its useful life, it delaminates. You're starting to see that everywhere. You can feel water underneath your feet through the rubber in a lot of locations, just through that failure. Yeah.
I believe, and we can confirm this in the report, I'm almost 100% positive that the project in 2000, the late 90s, completely replaced the whole roof. So
Everywhere.
it wasn't, right?
Okay.
Is that right? Do you know?
I don't know.
I don't think
the
it says
answer
that in the report. I think it said the one roof was 1971, which is incredible, which I don't know if I believe, and the other roof was 2000.
I think there was work done.
Yeah, I think that the roof over the gym has definitely been redone since the original school.
Mhm.
But you did the renovation so that you added a gym over there.
That was new.
So you
Yeah.
added, that's a whole new renovation. So you must have done the roof on the backside at that time as well.
Mhm.
And that's why you have the leaking, is because, well, the sludge that comes through, because it was a tar and gravel roof over that section originally. And then we did insulation and a rubber roofing system over that tar and gravel without removing everything. So you're getting that sludge to come through. It's just water getting under that roofing system and come down the wall through whatever holes it's finding. But yeah, I think there's a combination of old and new, but then new over old.
Yeah. So back to a statement I made earlier about we're going to make better decisions than the last,
Yes.
right? And this is, I don't want to use that term building committee, right? Because people start to talk, this is not a building committee, right? That is not the purpose here. If we start with an MSBA project, that kicks off and there would be town involvement, right? And that is very formal structure. The same would be the case if we weren't partnering with the MSBA on an actual project or renovation or repair project. So that isn't the purpose, but I think the decisions that are made, right? The hope is that the conversation we're just starting here today is that we're not going to do the things that John just referenced, where yes, it's a new membrane, but it was to save money. They left everything else intact, and now it's failing where it wouldn't have been failing so quickly. So yeah. So other thoughts?
So I guess, is there anything that if we don't spend the money today, we're going to wind up spending money? I'm sure there's a lot of things, but what is the biggest priority? If we don't spend the money today, we're going to wind up spending money down the road, more money rather, or we're not protecting the building.
John, feel free to jump in. I mean, I think certainly
I'm just thinking about the one example I just gave, right? Like the gym. We're starting to see deterioration on the hardwood floors. I mean, as that spreads and as that grows through leaks in the roof and leaks in the walls and everywhere else, you're going to end up paying, I don't know if a new renovation, you'd probably do the floors over anyway. I don't know. Is that money we'd save by fixing that roof there, by not having to do the entire floor, the entire gym over? I mean, those are bigger questions, right?
Yeah.
But that was one example I was thinking, is if we replace that roof now, you fix your outside, you protect the inside, and then we can work on the inside when we do the major renovation. But protect it the best we can at this point. I think that's where you would save down the road. I think your envelope is to protect the structure of the building, right? Is your most important asset. So that's where I would say money would be most useful spent now.
Yeah, and I think it's just to confirm, so we are spending a lot of money too, right? So this isn't the committee, actually, I shared with them just informally, and the finance subcommittee will take it up again next week. We will be tapping into the stabilization fund for some repairs. We've got a tight tank, poly tank out back that's failing, that's connected to our science labs. Again, just age. It's time. And we've also done quite a bit of roof repairs this year, as John was referring to. But we know that when you fix a roof leak, you're just moving the water somewhere else. So unless the roof is redone and pitched correctly, and right, when you fix one leak, that's great. That area doesn't, well, hopefully doesn't leak anymore. But I mean, this is the same for all the town buildings and our own homes as well. Once water finds a way in, it is really challenging to stop. So
So the MSBA, don't they have that program for like roofs and windows too?
So they do. Good question. So that's called the Accelerated Repair Program. They just revamped that this year, and it's now in every other year. So they're I think it was due March. I think it closed very recently. It's a much quicker process, i.e. the name Accelerated Repair. It's confined to building envelope. It used to be HVAC. It's not anymore. So it's in essence, it's windows, roofs, and doors. However, in order to participate in that, there's kind of a qualifications list, and part of it is that there's a 25-year useful life in the building as it exists today. So in essence, they're doing the same thing we're doing and saying, well, it doesn't make sense for us to partner in a new roof with you if you think you're going to have to do some major renovations that would potentially render some of that funding wasted in the future. So we wouldn't qualify because there was another box that we looked at that we couldn't say that we don't have plans to have a larger.
But that would send a strong message that our roof is leaking and you have to invite us into this second level because we won't have, because my concern is that eventually, if this isn't addressed, the gym will go by the way of the field and it will be condemned and nobody will be able to use it because it's leaking, and you won't have gym class unless you can take it outside. And the kids that have basketball leagues are going to have to run their home games on another track because I've seen all this before.
Yeah, we're not quickly getting to that, right? I mean, the gym or the stadium, it was the bleachers, right? I mean,
No, it was the track too.
And
I
then the
held a
track,
parade
yeah.
to walk around the track so the people could see how
Yeah.
bad the track was
Yeah.
in order to get the stadium.
Yeah, so I think for the repairs and fixes that are needed, to John's point, right? It's literally center court on the gym, and have done some work to repair that. But so it starts to deteriorate on the floor, and yes, we'll combat that. So is there a chance of that? Of course. We're doing the maintenance to make sure that's not happening, right?
Yes.
We're slowing it down for sure. And there's a lot of work and a lot of money being spent, a lot of work being done and a lot of money being spent to ensure that doesn't happen. So eventually, yes. So right, but you're talking, many, many years out. And our point here is we need to be doing something now, right? Taking steps now, with or without the MSBA.
I just think to Brian's point, having gone through the MSBA documentation, you can't apply for a roof without lying, because that's literally part of the application process, is saying sort of, yes, I'm asking for help with a roof, but I'm testifying that the rest of my building is good to go. We can't say that.
No, so you say no. You don't lie. You don't lie. They just need to know that this is,
Yeah, and they know, right? So we don't need to apply for the ARP. They've walked this building, literally the MSBA with their they have a consulting engineers, like a crew walked through. They have, along with our statement of interest, we send them a whole bunch of extra stuff they didn't ask for. But right, this report, we did our own study with MLP Design. So they're fully aware.
Okay.
Again, they want to see us investing dollars and not the MSBA is very keen to the fact that some districts will try and make it look as bad as possible, and in some cases take steps. And I'm not singling anyone out here, right? They're to make it look as bad as possible, or even physically make it bad to qualify. they very much want to see us investing in the buildings, right? And how you tell your story, right? There's always a marketing campaign for a story to be told, but the reality is, as I said earlier, the buildings are not dangerous. There's definitely unsightly parts, the brown sludge, the bathrooms need.
No, but it's a waste of public monies to put it into a roof that you're just gonna replace in 3 to 5 years.
Exactly, yeah. So, right, so then we would have to make the decision back to, I think it was Matt made the point, right? If we were gonna renovate the gym, if the gym was getting so bad as far as leaks and we couldn't wait any longer, then we would have to make a decision locally to say, okay, you know what? We're gonna take that as a separate entity. We're gonna replace the floor, the roof, and the RTU. All right, I'm making this up. And that's a fill in the blank $1 million project. And then that's not going to be considered as part of a future project with the MSBA. So that's what I think we have to consider. And what I will argue, we need to spend some dollars with a Habib or a Doran Whittier or other OPMs and designers to say, how do you do that, right? How do you phase that effectively so we can say every dollar we invest, every dollar our towns invest in this is not being wasted. Ideally, it's in partnership with the MSBA, so we can also say it's the most efficient as well, right? And it's in partnership with the state. But if we have to spend just local dollars, I want to make sure we're spending them on things that we're not gonna undo in 3, 4, 5 years. So
I don't know how you do that. How do you fix a roof that's leaking, that you're gonna replace, your hope is to replace it in 3 to 5 years, but don't waste any money?
I think we have been fixing it. I think we want to, what Brian's suggesting is replace the roof so we don't have to go back and do it if we do a project down the road. We're not looking to do anything twice.
And not to bring up the other district that begins with a W locally, but they did a roof replacement and their renovation option did not include that roof replacement was essentially going to stay as part of that renovation option. They weren't replacing that roof as when they were looking at that for a renovation. That wasn't included in the project.
Well, if that's possible, then okay.
yeah,
I can say that, like, if you look through, or actually it's probably all taken down now, but if you look through their documentation, that is absolutely what they had proposed.
yeah, and that's right. Then that has to be a discussion with the MSBA about what is a renovation versus what is a knockdown rebuild, right? I still don't see a path where the most efficient is going to be a knockdown and rebuild on this campus because there's not another location for us to put, a campus. And I don't, right? I mean, just the reworking, and we have got marsh and homes, and so it's not. But we have to study that and prove that out. But we've said from the very get-go, even in our application, designated as a priority, our preference is a renovation project. Right, you look at Pine Grove for 39 million, that is in essence a brand new building, right? The structural brick and cinder block and steel, that's it. Every pipe coming in, every wire, everything is brand spanking new.
But it had good bones.
It had great bones. Yeah. Yeah. And anyone who tries to make a cell call from this building or try to do anything in this building knows the bones in this place, they're solid, right? This was literally, I don't know if people know, this is a cast in place building. That was the late 60s, 70s. Literally, this building was poured, not built. So rebar and concrete ground up. So as far as right, I think we kind of knew this first meeting was kind of be all over the place, but as far as a next step, what I would request is that our subcommittee, Narissa, Caitlin, Matt, do you believe, and then do the town support that a path forward is we have to at least have a conversation to start, and I want to start with Habib, right? It just makes sense. Kevin Preventure, who was out, he had presented to the full DCC back in whatever that was. Have a conversation with him, and then maybe again I can reach out to Brad Dorr of Dorr and Whittier because we have a working relationship from Pine Grove and all that, just to get two opinions on what this is, this weird no man's land. We're not ready to hire a designer. We don't need an OPM. we don't need to do another study, right? We've got the study that is probably a whole lot more costly now than it was in 21, but we know the needs. It's this kind of stopgap interim. I would like to say, let's commit some dollars. And first I need to come to you and bring you what the dollars would need to be. But is that something that this group would support?
Well, I think there's no other way to find out.
I would agree with that. My one concern about Habib is I don't remember whether they have MSBA experience, and I think
Oh, yeah.
whoever would be doing something like that needs to have some MSBA experience, because that's a huge factor in this.
Yeah. They have extensive MSBA experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the other thing I'd also like to ask about as an outcome of this meeting is setting up, I don't know if it's John or it's you or whoever, maybe combo, but setting up tours through the building, because I'm in there all the time, but I'm not seeing those, like, all the systems that we're talking about are, they're generally out of sight. I know what the bathroom, well, I know what the girls' bathrooms look like. I
Not shockingly, the boys are worse. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I know what the public areas look like. I know what a lot of the classrooms look like, but as far as the things that we're actively talking about, I haven't seen those since we did probably 2021 or 2022, our last major walkthrough with Chris Walsh. Because we talk about them all the time. We talk about the status and, kind of the condition that they're in, but it's not something I have personally had eyes on since that time, because they are all behind walls and doors and stuff where we can't get. And I know there are places we can't go, like the electrical room, obviously. But
suit you up and get you in there. Yeah, no, and I think to your point, Nerissa, I think that's good, because ultimately, right, this is not a decision-making body, but I think if the school committee is charged, the three of you as a subcommittee and working with a town representative to become the experts to say, what do we do next? I want you all to see firsthand, right? John will he'll take us and show us anything. We can go on the roof. You go a field trip right up there. Good times.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm open to that whenever we want to set that up.
John's like, awesome, show and
Let's
tell.
go.
Let's do it.
are other people interested in doing that, in that we would do a meeting? Alicia was talking about, a site walk earlier.
Yeah.
Are people interested in doing that as a meeting, or we just want to do that? I mean, maybe I'm standing alone in wanting to do that, but I don't know where other people are.
I definitely want to do that.
I'll get up on the roof. I've seen the gym. It's basketball season for us, and I've seen the gym. I've seen the bathroom, the girls' bathroom closest to the gym. I've heard about the boys' bathroom closest to the gyms, but I would really like to see all the things that we've been discussing, because I think the last site walk I did was with Nerissa. Was it with Nerissa?
Like 2021, probably.
Yeah, it was 2021, 2022.
Yeah, it was during COVID.
Yeah, it was right. It was right around 21 when we had this report recosted, which again, it was a year and a half old at that point. But yeah,
I think it would be valuable to kind of go and really put eyes on everything we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I agree.
I should say I did do the walkthrough with the engineers as well, but they were looking for very specific things when they came in with the MSBA. So there was a lot we skipped, because it was not something that they, in their reporting, they wanted to focus the hour and a half that they had here on.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than have an entourage go through, I don't know if I know it's more work for John, but would it be okay if we had, we done it piecemeal? Like when it fits my schedule, when it fits.
Like schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, like pick 3 times that, that you're willing to.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take? An hour?
Right. It's the will of the group, right?
Yeah. How long we want to look?
How deep do you want to look?
You definitely don't want to go with me if you want it to be an hour.
Good luck, John.
It's just a thought. I'll do whatever the group wants, but I'm just thinking it might be easier on the school. Unless we do it on a Saturday, but I don't know if anybody wants to go in on a Saturday.
I don't mind. I mean, whatever. John's technically not in. Brian's
Yeah,
Right.
in theory
obviously
not
prefer
in.
the week, but
Right.
let's do
open
this.
to-
Let's,
I'm
yeah,
open
we'll
to
coordinate on
board.
some times and maybe do like, pick a morning time and then an afternoon time or something like
Yeah,
that.
if this
Um,
way it's not 9 people.
Yeah. And again, we're not, did I freeze or is that Alicia?
Alicia.
Should I
Yes,
freeze?
Alicia, yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, right, this isn't walking through classrooms, and so this isn't necessarily a tour that would be disruptive to the school day, so I'm not really worried about that. Also not a bad thing to have people see us, right? Walking through the buildings, paying attention to this, working on this effort. So yeah, we'll do that. John and I will coordinate on some times that would work. And if we're gonna be on the roof, obviously, weather's an issue and
A day like today.
yeah, exactly. Not a Friday that's rainy.
Okay, I know I wasn't gonna talk, but can I just ask a question?
Oh, I don't even have to talk to the chair, Linda. Matt?
Sure.
Are you gonna be videoing the walkthrough that you do so that if other people outside of the group wanted to see it, they would be able to see what everybody was looking at?
I would love it if we can.
We actually did that at Pine Grove. We
Yeah.
had tours and we videotaped the horrible sections of the building.
Yeah.
Am I correct? I remember that.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I guess my one question would be, the purpose of the video, right? So when we did it at Pine Grove, we were further in the process. Right, we were into the marketing campaign for the need. We'll need a marketing campaign for the need. I think there's a lot of stories that people are very well aware of, but I'm hearing this walkthrough as a lot more kind of nuts and bolts for this committee to understand, to really get eyes on what the problems are. And I don't know that a video camera following us for that would be a little more limiting, right? And based on where that video is going to go. So that would be my only question is.
Yeah, it might be better if we wait till we hone in on what we're actually going to do before
Right.
we videotape it and market it.
I don't see this as the only trip up to the roof for this group. Let's just say that.
I'm not opposed to it being videoed. I might be opposed to this particular one where we're all kind of going for the first,
Yeah.
not the first time, but it would be good to have it for reference for us in the future, but I don't know if I'd like it, shared before we're ready to define the message we want out.
Unless I have it.
But it might be good for those that can't make it up onto the roof.
Yeah.
Or don't particularly want to scale a roof on a random Tuesday.
It's just
It
a
might be good
ladder.
to video those parts. Not everyone's down for a ladder, Brian.
Yeah, me included, but it's really fun if you're up there. Okay. All right, so we can talk about that. So I'm hearing, right, this isn't a video production where we're going to be sharing this part with people, but maybe in the future. Does that work, Linda?
Yeah, that I wasn't saying to share it out. I meant for people who in that group that couldn't make it up on the roof
Gotcha,
when you
okay.
guys were like.
Okay,
So it's mainly for your group, but that's all I was just wondering.
that makes sense. Okay. All right, so John and I will work on some dates and get that to the group, or get them to the group, I should say. As I will work on, I'll have formative conversations. I'm hearing that this group is in support of that. I don't think this is something we need to wait for the school committee to approve, because I'm going to come back to you with information on what the potential, what a budget would have to be for next steps. And then do we want to schedule a next meeting? I'm assuming they're going to want to meet more than once. So do you want this? So we're on a Friday morning. Seems to work. No one's fallen asleep. Appreciate that. Do we like Friday mornings? Is it kind of, someone called it, wasn't that recovery day? What was the word?
Fix it Friday.
Fix it Friday.
We'll have to fix it.
Yeah.
Would it be, I'm just gonna ask the group, would it be appropriate if I took, like, we have a resident that lives in town that has served in the past on our municipal building committees, and he has significant expertise in doing this type of work.
Mhm.
He has a business that, you know, he's got
Yeah.
Harvard, he's got Wentworth, he's got all kinds of stuff. And in fact, I don't know if he'd be willing to do it, but when I go through, would it be okay with you guys if I ask him to take a tour through? Or is this too early for that? Or if you would prefer not to do that, I just want to get the feel for the committee.
Yeah, I'll share my opinion. I just would worry if you're gonna open it to him, and he's awesome, love him, right? Lots of great expertise. I just worry about if we're gonna open that up, I think we would want to be opening that up to others.
To others, yeah, okay.
And I worry about that. That doesn't mean in the future that couldn't be, right? Having
Yeah.
him involved 100%. I just think for this first round of informing all of you or all of us being on the same page, I think this is better, right? Without any public video or anything, so we can ask the questions without worrying who's
Okay.
going to say what, and just really pushing back and so that we come back to the table with a very clear understanding of how pressing the needs are and the impact of the challenges.
Okay,
I
So
agree with
Fridays
that.
work
I think when you open it to the public also, you're gonna lock yourself out of being able to do things like climb up to the roof.
mhm.
So I don't think we wanna go there
No,
yet.
and then it could be, you know, a lot of public that wants to come see it,
Yeah.
so.
Right. Eventually, yes, I think we're there, right? Regardless of whatever solution we have, I see
Yeah, eventually it is a public building and the
Yeah.
public is gonna have to be asked to be putting, you know,
Yeah.
public money's up for it. If the public wants to see it, the public should be able to see it.
Yeah.
Eventually, but
Yeah.
I don't think we're there yet.
yeah, and that doesn't, right? So then others, right, we'll say names on camera, but right, other individuals that have a level of expertise, that doesn't preclude us from having a conversation with that person, right? Myself as hired staff, I can reach out to him, obviously know him, and have those conversations. And you know, John, Brian, and I could meet with him and have a discussion about what his thoughts are. So that doesn't mean we can't utilize local expertise.
Okay,
I want to make sure we say that, right? We want local expertise, as much input as we possibly can. We just want to make sure this is, because this is a formal subcommittee, that you all
understand.
drill, structure it accordingly.
Yeah.
Okay, so Fridays work.
Fridays work for me.
Okay, so Fridays, is this 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock? What did we
Well,
start?
it depends on the Friday, but usually sometimes 10 will work. This week, 10 didn't work.
Okay,
Um,
and you had said you're the person, but Tracy's your backup.
mhm.
Is that going to be, so if we, my guess is the group would want to do like a consistent time for
Yeah.
each. Does that make sense, or do you want to schedule
So
on?
are we talking about meeting weekly, monthly? What is the cadence of these meetings?
I would like to argue not weekly. That's just
Okay.
my, okay, put that out there. Sorry, just lost my breath there for a second. So I mean, I think if we started off meeting monthly, it makes sense. That's kind of, that follows, I'm sorry, I was just noticing Neil's chat. But I think on a monthly basis makes sense. Neil had noted his mic isn't working, but he prefers 10 a.m. on Fridays.
I can do you want to, how does April 12th look for everybody?
So what Friday of the month is today? Today's the third
The
Friday.
15th. It's the third Friday of the month.
So that goes, so the 12th would be the second. Friday. But the
Because
third.
there's an extra week in March.
So
It
do you
doesn't
want
matter to me, the 12th or the 19th,
19th is school vacation. I don't know if that,
the 26th is not good for me.
Please avoid school vacation.
Yeah, do you want to say as a, right, so this is the third Friday of the month because the first was a Friday. Want to say the second Friday of the month? That puts it on April 12th and then May 10th and then June 14th. Does that work as far as just plugging it on the calendar? Before
That
I
works for
post
me.
anything. I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut you off, Matt.
Sorry, I that works for me.
Okay.
That works for me.
Okay, I was seeing nods. Before we post anything, I'll like show what the next, several months look like and send that to you all and make sure that works before we put it out. And publish it on any calendar. Does that work?
So I like that idea as well. I'm just saying up front that I can't make the 12th
That is of,
of April.
okay.
Do you
Is
want
that-
to,
Do you want to do the 5th, Narissa?
Do what?
I mean, the 5th is really close to now, but
It is. I think Brian's
Yeah.
gonna need more time and
yeah.
boards are gonna need more time. I don't have to be here either. Two of you can, you know, if you've got two, you've got a quorum.
I don't know. I think you should be here.
Yeah, I would prefer you here, Narissa, personally.
So we can either skip April or move it to the 26th. But that will screw up our whole.
the 26th isn't good for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said that.
I mean, not at that time.
How about we look at the first Friday of the month and go to May 3rd? It sounds like I'm hearing, we need a few weeks, obviously, right? So I think we're done for March. If we go to April and we're sticking to Fridays, 12th, not great, 19th is vacation. We'll probably all be here, but that might not work for everyone else. 26th doesn't work. So Friday, May 3rd.
Mhm.
And then go with the first Friday of every month from there forward.
Sure.
Is that okay? Okay. So I will model that out. Nicole and I will connect on the calendar, model that out, and then get that out to everyone. Have some formative conversations. That actually makes sense. Gives me a few weeks to connect with those folks. Have some formative conversations, maybe even our friend Alicia, about some kind of advice about some first steps here. We'll look at some schedules for some walkthroughs. Does it make sense then we would target those walkthroughs in April so that when we come back here, April's a nice month, we should see some tulips and stuff, maybe some sun shining. And then when we meet on the 5th, hopefully we'll have had an opportunity to have everyone have jumped up on the roof, especially Caitlin, because she's really excited about that.
I love a good field trip, Brian.
Absolutely. We're all about field trips.
So
Are we
we're looking
talking 10
at
o'clock?
the 7th.
So we're looking at
Tentatively.
Friday, May 3rd would be the next meeting.
Yeah, and then the 7th, is that what you're looking at?
And then the 7th would be, yes.
Is that the Friday before graduation?
Is that the Friday before graduation? That is the week after graduation,
Oh, okay, good. All right.
right? Graduation is the
The 1st?
first. Yeah. And then I'm assuming, I'm right, obviously, we work all summer. We'll work through the summer. Keep meeting July, August. Okay.
Brian, are we talking 10 o'clock for these meetings?
Yes, I believe I know Neil had chatted because his mic isn't working, but 10 seemed to be better for folks. All right. 10 a.m. Next meeting Friday, May 3rd, 10 a.m. We're staying Zoom. We're staying recording. We're posting them to the school committee YouTube channel. John and I will connect on tours and we'll have some formative discussions and come back to you on May 3rd with really it's a dollar amount, right? This is the step and this is the budget we think we'll need to get our questions answered. Okay.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Oh, do I have to do a roll call?
Mm-hmm.
Narissa,
Yes.
Caitlin,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.